What's more dangerous, the spy you can see, or the American inside the system feeding him? You saw the police cars. You saw the suited men with the flat expressions. You saw the headline buried on page 6, 3 paragraphs, no photographs, written like it was a clerical error. Federal agents detain foreign national in connection with an ongoing investigation. Most people skimmed it and forgot it. They were dead wrong. Because what happened that night wasn't a routine arrest. It wasn't paperwork. It wasn't standard procedure. It was the moment a 40-year chess game, played in silence, in parking lots, in embassy corridors, and in the nerves of men who never sleep, suddenly snapped into the open. And the strange part? The man who triggered it wasn't a senator, wasn't CIA, wasn't FBI. He wasn't even a cop. He was a delivery guy. A regular American delivery driver, an invisible man in an invisible job, who did what the entire foreign policy establishment, the entire intelligence bureaucracy, and half the professional class in Washington had trained themselves not to do. He noticed. Tonight I'm going to walk you through the blueprint. Not the sanitized version. Not the version they tell you in movies, where the spy wears a trench coat and the hero says something clever. I'm going to show you how a Soviet illegal, someone who wasn't supposed to exist, almost walked out of an American city with something that could have shifted the balance of the Cold War. And how the only thing that stopped him was a delivery guy with a beat-up van, a good memory, and the kind of stubborn conscience bureaucracies hate. By the end of this, you'll understand why certain people in Washington went quiet for weeks. Why phones stopped ringing at the State Department. Why a single, anonymous civilian suddenly became the most important witness in a counterintelligence case no one wanted the public to see. And what happens the day after you catch a man like this, because the arrest is never the end. It's the beginning. Let's go! It's the late 1980s. Before the internet. Before everyone walked around staring into a screen. Before a security camera meant anything more than a grainy black and white box mounted over a bank door. The Cold War isn't loud the way people remember it now. It's not sirens and mushroom clouds every day. It's quieter than that. It's tension in boardrooms. It's closed briefcases. It's men who don't talk on the phone. It's the feeling that the world is being decided in places you'll never see. And on one particular night, cold enough that exhaust hung in the air like fog, an American delivery driver made a stop that should have been ordinary. He was running late. He had a stack of invoices on the passenger seat, coffee that tasted like burnt pennies, and a route he could drive with his eyes closed. He pulls up to an apartment building, one of those mid-rise brick places that always smells faintly like boiled cabbage and old newspapers. He grabs the package, checks the label, buzzes the unit. No answer. He tries again. Nothing. So he does what delivery guys do. He waits. And while he's waiting, he notices something that doesn't fit. A man across the street, half in shadow, standing by a payphone. Not using it. Just standing there, like he's waiting for something else. Most people would look away. Most people would say, "Not my business." But the delivery guy looks again. Because the man's posture is wrong. He's not relaxed. Not impatient. Not bored. He's calibrated. Like an instrument. He keeps scanning the block with his eyes, but his head barely moves. He's watching without looking like he's watching. And then the man does something that makes the delivery guy's stomach tighten. He reaches into his coat, pulls out a small object, something that could be a pack of cigarettes, could be a wallet, and he palms it like it matters. Then he walks. Not toward the apartment building. Past it. He crosses behind a row of parked cars, stops near a trash can, and, casual as breathing, drops the object into a folded newspaper sitting on top of the garbage. He doesn't look at it again. He just keeps walking. And the delivery guy, who has never heard the phrase dead drop, who doesn't know the difference between the KGB and the GRU, who doesn't care about geopolitics, feels the hairs on his arms rise because he recognizes one universal truth. Honest people don't move like that. And in that instant, without knowing it, he steps into the bloodstream of the Cold War. Why would a delivery guy matter? Here's what most people don't understand. Big systems, governments, intelligence agencies, embassies, depend on one thing more than budgets, more than weapons, more than technology. They depend on routine. Routine is camouflage. Routine is what allows extraordinary actions to hide inside ordinary days. A delivery guy is routine. He is background noise. He is invisible. Which is why he's dangerous. Because he sees what the powerful stop seeing. He sees the patterns of a street, the rhythm of a building, the faces that belong and the faces that don't. And that's why, when the establishment later tried to shrink this incident into a minor matter, some very serious people were quietly panicking, because it exposed something they hate admitting. Their entire system can be cracked by a civilian with attention. Now let me show you the playbook. How the Cold War was actually fought. Forget the speeches. Forget the parades. The Cold War in America was fought in 3 layers. Layer 1. Missiles and treaties, the stuff politicians talk about. Layer 2. Proxies and pressure, the stuff newspapers sometimes catch. Layer 3. Information theft, the stuff that almost never surfaces until it's too late. This story lives in Layer 3. And in Layer 3, the most valuable thing isn't a gun. It isn't a bomb. It isn't even money. It's a folder. A name. A blueprint. A schedule. A weakness. A single sheet of paper can be worth more than a battalion. And the Soviets understood that better than anyone. They built a machine around it, an ecosystem of handlers, couriers, cover identities, cultural attaches, trade representatives, and men who smiled at cocktail parties while quietly taking inventory of America's nerves. But there was one kind of operative that even the FBI dreaded. Not because he was more violent, because he was harder to see. The illegal. A Soviet spy with no diplomatic cover. No embassy immunity. No official existence. A man who could live for years as a Canadian businessman or a Swiss consultant, build relationships, rent apartments, open bank accounts, attend church, shake hands, and never once appear on a list. If you catch a legal resident spy at an embassy, you have a scandal. If you catch an illegal, you have a war inside your own walls. Because it means he got in. He blended. He operated. It means the system failed. And bureaucracies will do almost anything to avoid saying that sentence out loud. Now, back to the delivery guy. Because he just saw the tail end of a technique that was designed to be invisible. And he did something the Soviet operator did not expect. He stayed. The buzzer never gets answered. The delivery guy checks the label again. Same unit. He's annoyed now. He has other stops. The clock is bleeding money. He looks down the street. The man is gone. But the trash can is still there. The folded newspaper still on top. And the delivery guy has a choice, one that seems small, but isn't. Option A, drive away. Option B, satisfy the itch in his gut. He walks toward the trash can. Not like a hero. Like a guy who wants to quiet his suspicion so he can finish his route. He reaches the can and looks down. The newspaper is folded too neatly. Like someone staged it. He lifts it. Inside the fold is the object. A small brown envelope. No stamp. No address. Just a rubber band. That's when the delivery guy hears footsteps behind him. He turns. A second man, different from the first, standing a little too close. "Can I help you?" the man says. The tone is polite. The eyes are not. And in that moment, the delivery guy realizes something else. He was being watched while he watched. Now the game is live. Here's where most people misunderstand espionage. Most people think spy work is action. It's not. It's pressure. It's the sensation of being in the wrong place at the wrong time, except the wrong time was planned. The second man is a classic type. Not flashy. Not threatening in an obvious way. Just a man who makes your body understand consequences without stating them. The delivery guy's brain starts doing math. Fast. If he says he found the envelope, what happens? If he lies, what happens? If he drops it, what happens? He chooses the instinct humans have used for thousands of years. He plays dumb. Just taking out some trash, he says, holding the newspaper like he's about to toss it back. The second man smiles. Not your trash, he says. And then, like he's done this before, he steps forward and gently takes the newspaper from the delivery guy's hands. No fight. No shouting. Just retrieval. Then the man walks away. And the delivery guy is left standing there, hard punching his ribs, watching something he can't explain slide back into the city. He goes back to his van. He drives off. But he can't let it go. Because now it isn't curiosity. Now it's a question. What did I just interrupt? And why did that man look at me like I just stepped on a landmine? Here's the line that separates bystanders from participants. Do you report what you saw? In the late 1980s, you don't have a hotline for, I think I saw a Soviet tradecraft. You have police. You have the FBI. And you have the knowledge, hardwired into Americans at the time, that if you call the wrong person, you might get laughed at. He drives to his next stop, but his hands don't feel right on the steering wheel. He keeps seeing the envelope, the smile, the eyes. So he does it. He finishes his route, goes to a payphone, because this is before everyone has a phone in their pocket, and calls the local FBI office. The agent on the other end is bored at first, then mildly interested, then quiet, and then the agent asks a question that tells you everything. Can you come in tonight? Now ask yourself, why would the FBI pull a civilian in tonight over a story about a trash can? Because the FBI already had a ghost. And the delivery guy just described its shadow. This is where the blueprint comes in. The delivery guy didn't know it, but for months the Bureau had been chasing a leak. Something subtle, not dramatic. Not, we lost a nuclear weapon. More like, how did the Soviets know about a meeting they weren't supposed to know about? How did a certain technology proposal get mirrored in Eastern Bloc research 6 months later? Why did a low-level procurement detail keep turning up in the wrong places? Counterintelligence isn't glamorous. It's pattern recognition. It's accountants and analysts and tired men with coffee breath comparing dates, names, travel logs, phone records. And then, when the pattern starts to form, you get the worst word in that business. Mole? A mole means the enemy isn't outside your house. He's in your kitchen. And once that word is spoken, 2 things happen at the same time. 1. The hunt intensifies. 2. The institution starts protecting itself. Because catching the spy is good. But admitting you were penetrated is career-ending for people who get paid to prevent that. So they keep it quiet. They work in compartments. And they pray. They pray they can fix it without making it public. Now, the delivery guy walks into the FBI office. Fluorescent lights, beige walls, the smell of old paper, and he gives his statement. He describes the man, the envelope, the second man. He's expecting skepticism. Instead, the agent across the table goes still, because the description matches someone they've been trying to identify. A man with multiple sightings, multiple aliases, no clear origin. A man who seems to appear near sensitive locations like smoke. The agent doesn't tell him that, of course. They never tell civilians what they know. But the delivery guy can feel the air change. He can feel that he's stepped into something deep. And then the agent asks him something that isn't a question. It's an instruction. If you see him again, the agent says, you do not approach. You do not engage. You call us immediately. The delivery guy nods. But inside, his stomach drops. Because he knows what that means. It means the FBI thinks he will see him again. Why the mysterious man took the risk. Let's talk about the mysterious man for a second. Because here's the part Hollywood always misses. A professional spy doesn't take unnecessary risks. If he's doing something sloppy, it's not because he's careless. It's because he's under time pressure. Or because the operation is reaching its end. Or because something has shifted and he's moving from collection to extraction. And that's where this story gets dangerous. Because when an illegal prepares to leave, when he's about to exit the country, he doesn't want to leave empty-handed. He wants to take everything he can. And that means compressing months of work into days. More meetings. More exchanges. More movement. More chances to be seen. That's how counterintelligence wins. Not by outsmarting perfection. By catching the moment perfection has to hurry. Now, remember what the delivery guys saw. A drop in a trash can. A staged newspaper. A quick retrieval. That wasn't random. That was a system. And the FBI now had something they rarely get. A civilian witness who didn't just see a face, but saw an exchange. That is gold. And that's why, in the days that follow, the delivery guy's life starts to feel watched. Not in an obvious way. No men in black suits standing on his lawn. Just small anomalies. A car that seems to be behind him too often. A click on the line when he calls home. A feeling that his neighborhood has more strangers than it used to. He tells himself he's imagining it. But he's not. Because now both sides know he exists. The FBI knows he saw something. And the Soviet operator, whoever he is, knows a civilian got too close. And that's a problem. Because spies don't like loose ends. Not because they're evil movie villains. Because loose ends become handcuffs. The part the news never tells you about, quiet cases. There's a fantasy people have about law enforcement and intelligence. They imagine the government as one clean machine. It's not. It's factions. It's jurisdictions. It's egos. It's one office wanting credit and another office wanting silence. So when the delivery guy becomes a thread that could unravel something bigger, the internal argument starts. Do we pull the thread hard and risk exposing how bad the penetration is? Or do we control the narrative, make a quiet arrest, and keep the public calm? Because remember the time period. It's the late Cold War. Arms talks. Summits. Fragile diplomacy. Nobody wants a public spy scandal that forces expulsions and retaliation. Nobody wants to derail negotiations. And that's exactly why the Soviet side operates the way it does. They exploit the West's addiction to stability. Now, the delivery guy is unknowingly holding a match over a room full of gasoline. And the people in suits, the ones who speak in euphemisms and memos, are holding their breath. Because this can go three ways. And every way has consequences. So let's talk about the three scenarios. Because this is where the blueprint becomes prediction. What the Bureau is modeling, late 1980s. Scenario 1. The quiet pullout. The Soviets realize their illegal may be compromised. They accelerate extraction. In this scenario, the mysterious man disappears. No arrest. No headlines. Just a ghost slipping onto a plane with a clean passport, maybe through a third country, vanishing into the Eastern Bloc. The U.S. government tells itself, at least the bleeding stops. But it doesn't. Because if he leaves, you don't learn who he met, what he took, who helped him. You don't get the network. You get silence. And silence in counterintelligence is often defeat wearing a mask. Scenario 2. The diplomatic fire. The Bureau moves fast and arrests the wrong person, or arrests the right person at the wrong time. This triggers embassy retaliation, expulsions, media frenzy. Congress starts asking questions no one wants to answer. The Soviets respond by grabbing an American abroad. Suddenly this isn't a quiet case. It's a public crisis. Scenario 3. The full net and the mole problem. The Bureau doesn't rush the arrest. They watch. They use the delivery guy's description to identify the courier system. They try to catch the illegal and the person feeding him. Because here's the truth. The illegal is dangerous. But the American inside the system, the one handing over information, is catastrophic. That's the nightmare. And that's why this third scenario is the most valuable and the most terrifying. Because it forces you to admit the enemy is already inside your walls. Now, which scenario do you think the establishment prefers? The quiet one. Always the quiet one. But quiet isn't always possible. Especially not when the delivery guy sees the mysterious man again. A week later, different neighborhood. Different delivery. He's unloading boxes behind a small office building. Nothing fancy. The kind of place with frosted glass and cheap carpet. He hears the click of a lighter. He looks up. Across the lot, leaning against a car like he owns time, is the man from the payphone. Same posture. Same controlled stillness. But now he's closer. Close enough that the delivery guy can see details. The way the man's hair is cut too precisely. The way his eyes track movement like a metronome. The way his coat hangs as if it's been tailored by someone who understands uniforms. The delivery guy freezes for half a second. The man looks directly at him. Not with surprise. With recognition. And then the man smiles. Not friendly. Not threatening. Just acknowledgement. As if to say, yes. It's you. The delivery guy's throat goes dry. He doesn't approach. He doesn't engage. He does exactly what the agent said. He gets to a phone and calls. And this time, the FBI doesn't ask him to come in. This time, the FBI moves. Because now they have something they can operationalize. A recurring presence. A pattern. And patterns are how you catch ghosts. Here's what happens next. And this is where the tone of your entire life changes if you're the delivery guy. You start noticing the watchers. Not the Soviet watchers, though they're there too. The American watchers. A sedan that's always parked half a block away. A man reading the same newspaper for too long. A woman with a shopping bag who never seems to shop. And if you think that feels comforting, you've never lived it. Because it's not comforting. It's suffocating. It's the realization that your mundane routine, your deliveries, your lunch breaks, your drive home, is now part of a hunt involving forces you cannot control. And the delivery guy is not trained for this. He's not a spy catcher. He's just a man who delivers packages and pays rent. But he's also something else now. A point of contact. A sensor. A civilian wiretap with a heartbeat. And that's when the FBI asks him for something that sounds small, but isn't. They ask him to do nothing different. Just keep your route. They tell him. Keep your normal schedule. That's always the first lie in these operations. Because the moment you know you're being used as bait, your normal schedule is gone. Your body changes. Your eyes change. Your fear changes. And fear, real fear, makes people make mistakes. Sometimes that mistake gets you killed. Sometimes it gets the spy caught. Sometimes it does both. Now, here comes the midpoint reversal. Because just when you think this is building toward a clean arrest, The mysterious man does what cornered operators do. He changes the game. The spy doesn't run. He escalates. Most people think when an operative feels heat, he disappears. Sometimes. But if the mission is critical, he doesn't run. He pushes forward fast. Because he's thinking in a different currency than you are. You think in days and weeks. He thinks in windows. A meeting window. A drop window. A departure window. And that's exactly what happens. In the next 48 hours, the FBI picks up increased activity, more movement, more contacts, more trips to places that don't make sense. The Bureau starts hearing the internal phrase you never want to hear. He's flushing. That means the spy is either dumping evidence, passing everything he has, or making one final transfer before he goes dark. And if he's flushing, time is running out. Then the delivery guy gets a call. Not from the FBI office. From a man who doesn't give his name. "You did the right thing," the voice says. The delivery guy's blood turns to ice. "Who is this?" he asks. A pause. Then, "Stop helping them." Click. Now let me ask you something. How does a Soviet illegal get the home number of a random delivery driver? There are only two answers, and both are bad. 1. The delivery guy has been followed and profiled. 2. Someone in the system leaked his identity. Either way, this case just turned from surveillance to personal danger. And now the establishment is holding its breath for a different reason. Because if the spy can reach a civilian witness, then the spy's network is closer than they thought. And if that's true, then the real prize isn't the illegal. It's the American who opened the door for him. Remember earlier when I said power is a belief system? In espionage, normalcy is a belief system too. America in the 1980s had a wall of normal. People assumed. The guy in the suit is a businessman. The foreign accent is just a foreign accent. The neighbor who keeps to himself is just private. Spies don't break that wall. They use it. They count on your politeness, your distraction, your fear of being wrong. And they especially count on one thing: that the average American doesn't want trouble. That's why the delivery guy is such a problem. Because he didn't look away. And because he didn't look away, the Soviet operator made an error. He acknowledged him. That smile in the parking lot? That was a message. A psychological touch. It wasn't, "I'm your enemy." It was, "I can reach you." And now the delivery guy has to decide what kind of man he is. Does he back off and protect himself? Or does he continue? Because if he backs off now, whatever this man is doing will continue, but hidden. And that's the trap the spy walked into. A civilian who won't behave like a bureaucrat. A civilian who won't do the comfortable thing. He keeps cooperating. And the Bureau decides to spring the net. This is the part where Hollywood would show you gadgets. Real life is uglier and simpler. The FBI doesn't need laser pens. They need timing. They need the spy to show up where they can control the environment. So they build an operation around the delivery guy's route. They let the mysterious man believe the delivery guy is still just a delivery guy. And they watch. They watch the payphones, the corners, the lobbies. They watch who loiters, who walks past twice, who never looks at the same window for too long. And then, one afternoon, it happens. The delivery guy is walking up the steps of a building with a package. He sees, through the glass lobby doors, the mysterious man inside, talking to a receptionist. The man is holding a clipboard. A clipboard. The most boring object in America. The perfect disguise. The receptionist points down a hallway. The man nods, walks out of sight. And now the delivery guy understands something that hits like a punch. This isn't a street-level courier anymore. This man is going into offices. He's crossing thresholds. He's hunting for something specific. The delivery guy drops the package at the desk, turns, and walks back out like nothing happened. Outside, he passes an unmarked sedan. The window cracks open just enough to show an eye. A voice. "Keep walking." This is it. The net is closing. And inside the building, the mysterious man is either about to make the transfer or realize he's being boxed in. Either way, the next 10 minutes decide the case. The mysterious man exits the building, but he doesn't leave. He stands on the sidewalk as if he's waiting for a cab. Then he looks directly at the delivery guy, and he walks toward him. Now, understand the psychology here. A trained operator doesn't casually approach a witness unless he has a purpose. That purpose could be intimidation, or it could be assessment, or it could be something worse. Confirmation that the witness has talked. The man stops a few feet away. "You work hard," he says, as if they're two strangers sharing a cigarette break. The delivery guy doesn't answer. The man's eyes flick to the delivery van, then back to the delivery guy. "You see many things," he says. The delivery guy feels his mouth go dry. The man smiles again. Then he says something that makes the delivery guy's skin crawl. "In my country, people who see too much, they have accidents." And then he pats the delivery guy lightly on the shoulder, like a friend, and walks away. That touch is not affection. It's theater. It's dominance. It's the spy saying, "I can reach you, and you can't stop me." Except, he's wrong. Because while he's delivering that little line, the FBI is watching from 3 angles. They've got eyes on his hands, his pockets, his path. And they've decided, no more waiting. They move in. Quiet, fast, and full of consequences. It doesn't look like the movies. No dramatic tackle. No shouting. 2 men in plain clothes approach from either side. One flashes a badge close to the mysterious man's face. The other grips his arm. The spy's body reacts instantly, tightening, shifting weight, calculating. But he doesn't fight. He knows something you don't. Fighting in public is how you confirm you're not a normal man. He allows himself to be guided toward the sedan. He turns his head slightly, just enough, to look back at the delivery guy. And the delivery guy realizes something chilling. The spy isn't afraid. He's disappointed. As if the operation failed, but the machine continues. The sedan door closes. The street returns to normal. Cars pass. People walk. Someone laughs. And most of the city has no idea that a piece of the Cold War just got handcuffed on a sidewalk. Now, you might think this is the end. It's not. This is where the real fight begins. Because the spy isn't the whole story. He's a node. And the Bureau now has to answer the question that keeps counterintelligence chiefs awake. Who is feeding him? Why Washington suddenly goes quiet? Here's why the establishment holds its breath in cases like this. An illegal can be arrested quietly. But once you interrogate him, once you start pulling on his life, you risk discovering something that forces public accountability. And institutions hate that. Because if the spy got what he was looking for, then somebody handed it over, or left it unsecured, or lied about damage. And that somebody might not be a villain with a thick accent. It might be a mid-level analyst, a contractor, a respected official, a man who eats lunch with you. So what happens next is predictable, and it always follows the same pattern. 1. Control the story. Minimize press. Keep language vague. 2. Contain the damage. Quietly review access logs. Shift assignments. Freeze certain projects. 3. Find the leak without a scandal, which is like trying to remove a tumor without admitting you had cancer. And that's where the delivery guy becomes inconvenient again. Because he's a civilian. He doesn't speak in euphemisms. If he talks, if his story reaches a reporter, the case stops being manageable. And manageability is the establishment's true religion. So they pressure him gently. Not threats. Just nudges. A suggestion that he should keep a low profile. A reminder that national security matters. A vague promise that this will be handled. Handled? That word should always make you suspicious. Because sometimes, handled means buried. But the delivery guy doesn't want fame. He wants one thing. To know he's safe. And that's the one thing they can't guarantee. Because the Soviets don't forget. And if this illegal had a network, the network doesn't vanish because one man got arrested. It adapts. The part nobody prepares you for. The day after the arrest, the delivery guy wakes up and expects relief. He doesn't get it. He gets silence. No follow-up call. No reassurance. No. Good job. Just absence. That's when civilians learn how the system really works. When you are useful, you are contacted. When you are a liability, you are managed. He goes to work anyway. What else can he do? But now he's jumpy. Every car behind him feels like a tail. Every stranger feels like an angle. And then, at one of his stops, he finds something on his windshield. A folded note under the wiper. No name. No signature. Just a sentence. You were lucky this time. Now, you can interpret that two ways. 1. It's a bluff, someone trying to scare him. 2. It's confirmation, there are others. Either way, the message is the same. This isn't over. So the delivery guy goes back to the FBI. And this time, he doesn't sit quietly and answer questions. He asks his own. He asks the only question that matters when you step into a covert war. Am I protected? The agent's face tells him the truth before the words do. They can't protect him the way he wants. Not completely. Not forever. Because in counterintelligence, you don't win by building walls. You win by making the other side uncertain. And uncertainty doesn't feel like safety. It feels like living with a shadow. Who the spy actually was and why it mattered. This is where, historically, the public usually gets a name and a mugshot. In the real world, what you often get is a diplomatic whisper. A quiet expulsion. A closed courtroom. A sealed affidavit. Because naming the spy is less important than protecting the investigation. But here's what matters for our blueprint. The mysterious man wasn't a random collector. He was a courier, a bridge between stolen information and Soviet control. That means he had contacts. Plural. And the FBI's internal fear wasn't just, what did he take? It was, how many Americans did he meet who will never admit they met him? And worse, how many times did we miss him because we weren't looking for him? Now, that's the institutional nightmare. Because once you accept that an illegal lived among you, you have to accept that your filters aren't enough. And if your filters aren't enough, then your whole sense of control is an illusion. That's why the establishment holds its breath. Not because one spy got caught, but because one caught spy implies two uncaught spies. It implies networks. It implies time. It implies damage you can't quantify. And that's where this story stops being about one delivery guy. It becomes about the fragility of normal. Why this mattered beyond one city. Zoom out. Late 1980s. The Soviet Union is under strain. The economy is sick. The system is cracking. When empires weaken, they don't always become gentle. They become hungry. They try to steal what they can before the future closes. Information theft becomes more valuable when time is running out. Because if you can't outproduce your rival, you try to outknow him. That's why illegals matter. They are long-term investments, expensive, slow, high risk, used when the stakes justify it. So if you're seeing increased illegal activity, it tells you something strategic. Someone in Moscow believed a particular American capability, negotiation position, or technology path was worth extraordinary risk. And that means the delivery guy didn't just stumble into a crime. He stumbled into a pressure point in history. Now, here comes the uncomfortable part. The part the mainstream news, the polite press conferences, and the tidy civics class version of government never likes to say. Sometimes history pivots because one ordinary person refuses to dismiss a gut feeling. Not because the institutions are heroic, but because institutions are slow. They are designed to avoid embarrassment. And the delivery guy, being outside of that, became the friction that stopped a machine. What likely happened next, the models? Because you asked for the blueprint, here it is. 3 likely outcomes the Bureau would be weighing in a pre-1990 Cold War case like this. Outcome 1. Closed trial, quiet swap. The spy gets processed quietly. Limited publicity. Possibility of a prisoner exchange later. This preserves diplomatic flexibility, but risks leaving the network partially intact. Outcome 2. Network roll-up. The Bureau uses the arrest to flip someone, identify handlers, and map contacts. This is the best counterintelligence outcome, but it risks scandal, especially if any contact touches sensitive government offices or contractors. Outcome 3. Containment and denial. The system decides the political risk is too high. They stop short of full exposure. They handle it. They make the immediate problem disappear, while accepting unknown damage. If you want to know why the establishment holds its breath, it's because every option costs them something they value. Credibility, stability, leverage, or truth. And those costs get paid whether the public ever hears the details or not. So what did the delivery guy get for doing the right thing? Not a medal. Not a parade. He got a new understanding of the world. He learned that danger doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it stands by a payphone pretending to be nothing. He learned that professional criminals, especially political ones, don't look like monsters. They look like men who know where they're going. And he learned something else, something that should make you sit up straight. The Cold War wasn't only fought by presidents and generals. It was fought by ordinary people who noticed what didn't fit. That's not a movie line. That's the uncomfortable truth. Now let me bring this back to you. Because you might be thinking, okay, interesting story. Why does it matter? It matters because systems, whether it's an empire, an intelligence service, or a bureaucracy, depend on your assumption that someone else is paying attention. The easiest population to penetrate is the one that believes it's someone else's job to notice. That delivery guy didn't have authority. He didn't have clearance. He didn't have training. He just had the one thing the whole machine can't manufacture on command: human attention. And that attention, aimed at the right moment, caught a ghost. Now I want to ask you a question, and I want a straight answer in the comments. Do you think the delivery guy was genuinely in danger after the arrest? Type yes or no, and tell me why. And if you want the second part of this story, the part about what the Bureau found when they started pulling on the spies' contacts, and how close this came to triggering a diplomatic incident, then subscribe, because this case doesn't end with handcuffs. That's just the moment the public could have noticed. Most people didn't. Now you do. See you in the next one.